Welcome to Revelation of Light, Part 4. What time zone are we in? In the book of Daniel, chapter 2, we read about the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Now, in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. So he had some troubling dreams, and he woke up. He was troubled by these dreams so much so that he wanted answers, but he couldn't remember what the dream was. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. You know, when the king wants something done, he gets it done. He called his people, and he called all the best minds in the land of Babylon to surround him, give him answers. He wanted answers, and he wanted them now. So they came and they stood before the king. The king said to them, "I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream." He was really seeking answers. Let's continue. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. "O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream. We'll give you the interpretation. Yeah, you can count on us." That's pretty much what they were telling him. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, "My decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, guess what? You shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap." So there was a threat. There was a threat on their lives if they couldn't do what the king wanted. "However, if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive gifts from me, rewards, and great honor. Therefore tell me the dream and its interpretation. Choose the better path. Tell me the..." But what he was asking for was not so easy. Can you imagine? He's asking them to tell him his own dream. How can you tell someone their dream? He was asking for a miracle. Well, let's continue. They answered again and said, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation." Okay? It was a reasonable request. Look, if you want an interpretation, you got to tell us what the dream means. Well, only God could read minds, and so only God could reveal the dream. Let's continue. The king answered and said, "I know for certain that you would gain time, because you see that my decision is firm. Let me make it clear to you. If you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words." So he didn't trust. He did not trust these wise men. He doesn't trust them. "You have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the times have changed. Therefore tell me the dream." Again, tell me the dream. He demanded to know the dream, and I shall make known to, and I shall know that you can give me its interpretation. Look, if you are so powerful, if you are able to do this unthinkable thing, if you have the ability to read my mind, to tell me what had happened in my dreams in the night, I for sure would know that you can tell me what the dream means. That's basically what Nebuchadnezzar is saying. Well, again, the Chaldeans answered the king and said, "There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean." Nobody's ever done this. In other words, they're saying, "Look, you're Nebuchadnezzar, you've gone too far. You've gone way too far. No king has ever asked what you're asking, for us to tell you your dream. Nobody's ever done that." It is a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Well, to put it more accurately, only God, only the true God. They said the gods because they only knew false gods. That was what they were raised with. But it's only the true God who could do what Nebuchadnezzar was asking. For this reason, the king was angry and very furious and gave the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And basically, look, if you can't help me when I need it, I don't need you. You're all gone. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men. And they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. So Daniel was a Jew, and his 3 friends were Jews, taken captive from Judah. And they were taught the special teachings that the wise men of Babylon were taught. They were given the best education that Babylon had to offer, but Daniel and his 3 companions were true to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Even though they were in this situation, they knew truth from error. They could discern truth from error, even though they were exposed to these Babylonian teachings. Well, now Daniel and his 3 friends are on the hit list. Let's continue. God reveals Nebuchadnezzar's dream. It was God, and only God, who could do such a thing. Then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, "Why is the decree from the king so urgent?" Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. Daniel's saying, what is going on here? What is happening? He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, "Why is the decree from the king so urgent?" And okay, I just read that part. Let's continue. Verse 16. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time, that he might tell the king the interpretation. Have patience, Nebuchadnezzar. Have patience. You will get your answer. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven. In other words, that they might pray concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Let's continue. Verse 19. Then the secret, God knows all secrets. God knows all things. The secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. And so Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Always give thanks to the Lord when he answers your prayers. Always praise the Lord. And Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. Kings come and go, but God is forever. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding." Verse 22, he reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness. He knew what was in the darkness of the mind of King Nebuchadnezzar. And light dwells with him. God is able to shed his light on any situation, no matter how dark and hopeless it is. To be able to reveal the king his dream. And if you couldn't do that, you were going to get killed if you were wise men. This was a dark and hopeless situation for Daniel and his friends and for all the wise men. But God is able to shed his light on all things. I thank you and I praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might and have made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's demand. God answers prayers. Sometimes God says yes. Sometimes he says no. Sometimes he says wait. But he had answered Daniel and his 3 friends' prayers. Daniel explains the dream. Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me before the king. So Daniel, by the grace of the Lord, was able to save those wise men of Babylon, those pagan worshippers. And I will tell the king the interpretation. Then Arioch quickly brought Daniel before the king and said thus to him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah. Of the captives of Judah. Not just any men, not just any captives, but the captives of Judah. Servants of the Most High God is what Daniel and his three friends were. Continuing, who will make known to the king the interpretation. Okay, because they were going to make known to the king the interpretation. I bet the king was the king skeptical? Was he anxious? What was in the mind of the king? Could he believe it? Could it be true? Let's continue. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar. See, the king of Babylon, that was the policy of the king of Babylon. That was the policy of the Babylonians, to change the identity, to change the names, to re-educate people like Daniel and his friends. But Daniel knew who he was because he knew who God is. See, once you know God, then you know yourself. Let's continue. Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? The king was really asking the question, are you able to do this? Can you do the impossible? Well, let's see how Daniel answers. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare to the king. No man in his own power could declare it. But let's see what Daniel does. He gives God the glory. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. And he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar, what will be in the later days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. So this dream of Nebuchadnezzar, it was a prophetic dream. A prophetic dream given to a pagan king, but needing the prophet from Judah to interpret. Daniel, the man of God, to reveal and to interpret. Let's continue. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed. Well, I'm sure the king heard that and said, yeah, of course. Thoughts came in my mind when on my bed. I already knew that. About what would come to pass after this. Now, maybe the king's ears would perk up at this minute. Keep going. And he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. This is a prophetic dream you've had, O king. And the king knew there was something special about that dream. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom. It's not because I'm smarter than everyone. It's not because I'm a PhD. It's not because I'm brilliant. It's not because of my own ability. And so let's continue. Than anyone living? No, I don't have more wisdom than anyone living. But for our sakes, who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. Okay. But for our sakes, who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. Okay. Well, I'm sure at this point, Nebuchadnezzar is still waiting. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. Have you ever had deja vu? You have a dream, and then you see something, it reminds you of that dream. Well, Nebuchadnezzar must have had deja vu 100-fold now, because as soon as this was revealed, it must have clicked in Nebuchadnezzar's mind. It came back to him. Yes, a great image. And so he knew, Nebuchadnezzar would have known if somebody told him a lie. Because he knew if he had heard what the dream was, he would have recalled it. And so when Daniel speaks, it must have went off in Nebuchadnezzar's mind. Yes, this was the dream. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron, partly of clay. Let's continue. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands and struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. So this stone struck this statue-like image in the feet and broke it into pieces. And then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff on the summer threshing floor. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. Just blew away like dust after the stone had shattered the statue into a zillion pieces. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain that filled the whole earth. So that stone that struck the statue in the feet turned into a giant mountain, a mountain so large it covered the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, it's King Nebuchadnezzar. He is hanging on every word, I'm sure, are a king of kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. So the king had subjugated many peoples. The king was very powerful, and he had authority over so many. And then Daniel says, you are the head of gold. So that head of gold represents the king of Babylon and his kingdom. The kingdom of Babylon is the head of gold. But then Daniel continues, after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours. That is the silver. So this silver is representing, and just as silver is inferior to gold, but it is a stronger metal, but less valuable. And so that silver represents another kingdom after Babylon. And then a third kingdom. And bronze is stronger yet, but less valuable than silver. And so that is a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. Again, iron is stronger than these previous metals. And this represents a fourth kingdom. A fourth kingdom, as strong as iron. Inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. So this metal is stronger, and this kingdom of iron will crush all of the others. A very powerful kingdom. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron. So there was still the iron of the fourth kingdom in the feet, but also potter's clay. So this is potter's clay mixed with iron in the feet. And it says the kingdom shall be divided. So this is a divided kingdom. A divided kingdom, the feet. And so then it says, whereas you saw the feet and the toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. Okay, well, a divided house cannot stand, Jesus said. And right at the feet of this statue dream image, the feet are divided. A divided kingdom and a divided house cannot stand. Well, this standing statue will not stand for long, according to the dream. Let's continue. And as the toes and the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong, that is the iron, holding it together, and partly fragile. The hardened clay breaks apart very easily. It's very rigid. Let's continue. What were the kingdoms after Babylon? Well, the head of gold was of Babylon. Well, in Daniel chapter 5, it tells us in verse 28, Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. So the next kingdom after Babylon was the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and they clothed Daniel. It was Daniel again who interpreted the writing on the wall in chapter 5 of Daniel. And they clothed Daniel with purple and put a chain of gold around his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That was the kingdom of Babylon, but it didn't last too much longer after that. The Medes and the Persians took over. Belshazzar's fall. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain. So he was the king of the Babylonians. And Darius, the Mede, received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Let's continue. What were the kingdoms after Babylon? Well, we saw the Medes and the Persians would have been the second kingdom. That would have been the kingdom of silver. The kingdom of silver would have been the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Well, let's continue. This is in Daniel chapter 8, verse 3. In this chapter, Daniel has a vision. Let's see what it was. It is the vision of the ram and the goat. Let's continue. Then I lifted my eyes and saw, and there, standing beside the river, was a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And so the book of Daniel is filled with these amazing prophetic images. And the higher one came up last. So here is a ram with 2 horns in Daniel's vision, one horn higher than the other. The higher one came up last. The higher one was the Persians. So this was a kingdom that consisted of the Medes and the Persians. The Persians became more powerful, and so that was the higher horn. The higher horn was the Persians. Let's continue. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward. And so this is temporal conquest of the Medes and the Persians, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. But he did according to his will and became great. So the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians became great. That was the kingdom that defeated Babylon. And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. So this goat in the vision that starts coming at the ram, this goat had one single horn. Let's continue. Then he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke his 2 horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him. But he cast him down to the ground, and he trampled him. So the goat defeats the ram and tramples him. And there was none that could deliver the ram from his hand. Therefore the male goat grew very great. So we see that the ram grew great, but the male goat grew very great. So in other words, greater than the ram. But when he became strong, the large horn was broken. So that single horn that goat had was broken. And in place of it, 4 notable ones came up toward the 4 winds of heaven. Well, we find out who that goat was right here in Daniel 8:21. It tells us of the ram first. It says, the ram which you saw, having 2 horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. So the ram represented the kingdom of the Medo-Persian kingdom. Medo-Persian kingdom, the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. And the male goat is the kingdom of Greece. And the large horn that is between its eyes is the first king. And so the king at the time that defeated the Medes and Persians, that was Alexander the Great. And so he is represented by that large horn. That large horn, Alexander the Great. In Daniel 6, verse 15, we read, then these men approached the king and said to the king, know, O king, that it is the law of the Medes and Persians. So the Medes and Persians were united as one kingdom, that no decree or statute which the king established may be changed. So I just brought out that passage just once again to show that the Medes and Persians were united as one kingdom. The Persians became more powerful than the Medes, but eventually Alexander and the kingdom of Greece defeated the Medes and Persians. Let's continue here. Well, so we see here that we have the first kingdom, Babylon, then the kingdom of silver, Medo-Persia, the kingdom of Greece is the kingdom of bronze. What about the 4th kingdom? Well, we can see who the 4th kingdom is. We know from the New Testament what kingdom was ruling at the time. Let's look at Luke chapter 3, 1 and 2 for the answer. Now, in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor over Judea, Herod tetrarch of Galilee, his brother Philip tetrarch of Iturea, and the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias, tetrarch of Abilene. While Annas and Caiaphas were high priests, the word of God came to John, the son of Zacharias, in the wilderness. So Tiberius Caesar, well, obviously, Rome. Rome was the kingdom of iron. And Rome was the one that was ruling in the days of Jesus. And so we can clearly see the sequence of kingdoms that were revealed in the dream of this pagan king Nebuchadnezzar. But it was God that had given him that dream, and God who used Daniel to interpret the dream. Well, we are in the end time world, because clearly the kingdom of Babylon has passed, Medo-Persia has passed, and clearly the Greek kingdom has passed, the pagan Roman kingdom has passed, but we could see there's still that Roman element in the feet. And so we are in the feet. We are actually in the toes of time. We are in the end time world. Let's continue. Daniel chapter 2, verse 41. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. So this is the end time kingdom. Yet the strength of the iron, that Roman iron, seeking to hold things together, is still at work in our world today. We'll learn more about that, but let's continue. The strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron, partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong, that is the iron part, and as far as holding it together, and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. So this mingling effect of this Roman iron mingling with the seed of men, we're going to learn more about that as we continue in this series. Let's continue. So let's look at some points here, some PowerPoints to look at. We see the feet, partly strong, partly fragile in terms of holding together. When did this division occur? Well, we know that the legs are Rome, pagan Rome. When did the division of Rome happen? When did the division of Rome happen? When did Rome divide, and in what way did it try to hold its formerly divided kingdom together? When did that happen? Let's continue to think about these questions. In what sense is Rome a unifying agency in our time, since we are in the feet of time? What is the next kingdom we see? Well, we see that stone. We see that stone. Well, we'll talk more about that in the future. Stay tuned for Revelation of Light Part 5. What time zone are we in? God bless.